never forget, actually, most of the things that people would say to me, like, oh my God, your best friend is gay? That's so nice. That's so nice. I'm like, oh my God, have you met him? Like, he's mean to me. Like, he cut my hair. He threw away my clothes. He told me, like what to wear. I was like, we are not like cuddling up and like chatting about boys. Like, he's just a normal guy. Like, I don't know what you think this mythical creature is.
Hello, I am Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories they created there, and the people that they used to know. Now, if you listened to my interview with the artist John Lee Bird about his days working at Crash in London, you might remember one or two mentions of his flatmate who was, shall we say, exposed to some salubrious shenanigans whilst hanging out with John. Well, I have been nagging for quite some time, but I finally got John's flatmate, Roz, on the show to share some of her story. We started off by talking about different venues and nights in London in the early thousands, but the conversation really became about the importance of their relationship, a gay man and a straight woman, and also the importance of safe spaces and communities when you're on the journey of becoming who you are. So, we probably need to just start off by coming clean that you're not an L, a G, a B, a T, a Q, an I, or an A.
No.
And you're an ally.
I am.
But, how do you feel about that word?
I don't know. I like it, I think. I think allies are important, aren't they? People don't ever win a war without having some pals on their side. Also, I think I've also taken my fair share of abuse. So yesterday on the tube, I think I was the victim of a hate crime. I was verbally abused by a man who said to his friend that lesbians made him sick and that they dress like men. This is as soon as I sat down next to him on the central line. And why do they dress like men? And one day, God willing, he will spill their blood. And why? And his biggest problem was that they made him feel dirty, and he wanted them to stop looking at him. And so I didn't use my usual line because, like, normally I'm really like had lesbian shouted at me quite a lot, and normally I use I think my brilliant line of why are you getting up in my grill, bruv? Is that because I'm going to get more pussy than you? But I decided to keep quiet yesterday.
I mean, you got on the tube, he sees you, and then he decides to start mouthing off.
Yeah, and his friend, who was much more frightening looking than him, was like, just like, you can think these things, but don't say them aloud, not while we're out in public.
Oh, his friend was moderating.
His friend was moderating him. His frightening looking friend was moderating him. And this unmasked small man was shouting about how dirty he felt by like freaks on the tube. Yeah. I mean, however, this then turned into like just a general women hate because a very glamorous woman got on and he then proceeded to abuse her.
And he hated it.
Yeah. So
anyway.
Yes, sorry. That.
So that takes us off from the original question about the use of the word ally. I mean, I was going to say it's somewhat better than fag hag, right?
It is definitely better than fag hag. Or beard.
Oh,
I mean,
beard.
I really hate the idea that, because I think also, like, I feel that having lived with a gay man for the last 20 years, I don't like that term fag hag, because I don't think that's what I am. I am just his pal. Like,
Have you had people bandy that at you though?
uh, not at me directly, but like that term kind of thrown around as it's sort of like, oh, well, you know.
It's so weird, isn't it? Like you don't have your own agency or your own life. You're just kind of there as an accessory.
Yeah, it's weird.
One of the other terms that was proposed as an alternative was gay adjacent, which I really love. I read this article with
I
this
love
woman
that.
like who'd come up with the term. This woman, sorry, I didn't mean it like that. But the person who came up with the term was like, I don't want to be called a fag hag. I want to be called gay
I
adjacent.
I love that term. I think I might use that. Just yay adjacent.
So ridiculous, but amazing, obviously.
That is absolutely unreal.
Anyway,
Yes.
so this gay man that you've been living with for 20 years, what should we call him?
Let's give him his name. Look, let's be
I was going
fair.
to come
I'm
up
not
with
gonna
like
make
some fancy alias for him, but okay, so John.
him.
So how did you start? How like I don't know this. How did you actually start living together?
So, I was a really nice, shielded, quiet, middle class Indian girl from Southall, and then my parents sent me to boarding school in India, and um, I decided I wasn't having any more of it. And when I came back home, I started to assert some of my rights, which
Ah,
generally involved going out.
and so was that because you were influenced by the people at school, or because you were so stifled at that school that you were just like, I need to break out?
Yeah, I think it was being stifled, but I think it was also like my parents had kind of really gone full Asian parent on me
Hmm.
in my kind of teenage years, and I kind of took it. And then when they sent me to boarding school, and it was kind of hellish, I thought, well, do you know what? All bets are off now. Like, I'm not going to be like, you've just sent me to the other side of the world to like this nightmare Christian boarding school in a mountain, which is beautiful. But um, yeah, kind of a bit like, I'm not going to play by the rules anymore.
And so, but okay, so how long were you there?
Just a year before I was sent back home.
Uh,
They
like,
didn't want me either.
so like expelled or
He
just
sent
encouraged
me
not to
back.
return?
Encouraged not to return is probably the best way to put it. Yeah, I wasn't given a mention in the yearbook.
Ah.
So yeah, encouraged not to return. Funnily enough, partly because I think one of the many things that they thought I might be was a lesbian. I shaved
Ah.
off all my hair when I was there.
How did you get access to clippers?
They were with scissors. So when I say shave, I mean that in a very loose
Oh,
sense of the word.
wow.
I mean shaving with scissors. It was not a good look for me.
But you were determined
And I
nonetheless.
I was absolutely determined to Beck's Devil's Haircut soundtrack, and yeah, and my friend, my still a very good friend of mine, but she and I often took refuge in the airing cupboard and would like, I don't know, be kind of found sleeping in there together on the floor, frolicking, that sort of thing, and like it was completely innocent, but it wasn't really going with the ethos of this sort of Christian boarding school.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can imagine why they made some certain assumptions if you were locking yourself in a closet with someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so you came back and all bets were off, and you were just like, right, that's it. Rebellious
That's it.
phase.
I'm going to go wild. Yeah. um, and then I just, during my period of going wild, my parents just said, put their foot down and were like, okay, if you want to be this person, we can't have you here anymore. So you either play by our rules or you leave. And I had met the girl that was living with John at university. She and I were both doing the same degree. And she said to me, she talked to me about John often because like we had similar taste in music, and she was like, oh, you've really got to meet John. And then so I kind of knew her as this acquaintance from the pub. And then she said that they had this, I told her about some of my troubles, and she said, oh, well, we've got one of our flatmates is now moving out, and we've got a room in our place. You could have it temporarily. So this was meant to be like, I think she was like, we don't know who this, do we want her? And so I came here, like where I am still now, like where I landed, and I met John, and we got on quite well, and I got on with his flatmate as well, and they were like, yeah, she can stay for a month. That was the original deal. So that was in the year 2000, and I was 19 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're still there.
And I'm still
And so, was it like, were you just like friends from the off, or did it just take a while?
Yeah, so there was a real turning point. So at the time I had a boyfriend who I'd met at boarding school, and then he'd come to London, and then we'd started seeing each other. What I didn't realise is that he was a homosexual.
Mm-hmm.
Despite now looking back, the warning signs were clear.
Let's not call them warning signs.
Yeah, no, of course. Sorry. Warning signs to me, perhaps. The signs were clear. Let's be fair. The signs were clear. I was ignoring them and burying my head in the sand. And so I was quite sort of, I just moved out of home. John and I weren't properly friends then, and his flatmate and I kind of saw each other, but I wasn't really super close to anyone. And then there was one night, and we went out for someone's birthday party, and John invited me out, and I went out, had a really good time, and this guy turned up, and oh shit, maybe I shouldn't say his name.
Okay, Carl. Oh, I can't say Carl. Why did I pick that? No. Carl.
You've got such a great way of saying Bob.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay, Bob showed up.
So Bob turned up this evening, at the end of the evening, and Bob was already drunk, and the kind of party was breaking up, and some of the people were going home, some people were going on to other places, and John said to me, I'm going out. Do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, why not? And then Bob came along too. And it became painfully clear that he was really, really wasted by the time we got to Embankment Station, because he started to try and run up a downcoming escalator. And I still remember this. I can still see John turning around to look at me now. And this is like the turning point of our friendship. He turned around and he looked at me and was like, we're going to be friends, but you need to make a decision. Are you going to come with me, or are you going to stay with him? It's like, if you're going to come with me, you need to like loosen up and like, get with the program, because I'm a gay man and I love sex and cock and like, and all that. And I was just like, I don't know, 19-year-old me was like, wow, this guy's really laying it out on the table. Like, how can I refuse? And I picked John.
So Bob is still running up a downward escalator somewhere in Embankment Station.
Yeah, we just left him. We just left him there, and off we ran. And that was my first night of popcorn. I think also I'd never met a gay man. I'd never met a lesbian. I'd never met anyone who was bisexual, not knowingly anyway. Mm-hmm. So he was the first person that I'd ever met who was just so open about who he was. And I really respected that. I thought, like that's, I think maybe I saw something a bit more about like how I wanted to be, because I'd spent so long like trying to, and I was like, okay, this guy seems mad, but incredibly like.
I really can't imagine John being that assertive ever.
He was a lot more shouty when he was young.
Oh, okay. So there was maybe some alcohol involved with him as well.
He was quite bossy.
I can't imagine that at all.
I needed it though. I needed it. he made me choose, like,
And okay, so you run away from Bob and you're with John and you go to Popcorn.
yeah,
So presumably that was your first ever gay venue night.
yeah,
What was that like?
yeah. It was amazing. It was it was absolutely amazing. I didn't know people could have this much fun. Like, it was genuinely like. Also, drinks were £1 with your student union
That's how
card.
people could have so
So,
much fun.
so that's exactly how people had that much fun. So at the venue that we'd left at his friend's party, there'd been this man in sort of elasticated trousers, and his friend had said to me, keep John away from this guy. Like, I don't know what he's doing. And I just met her, and I really didn't know John very well. And this night had really proved that I was going to be the person who would follow John into hell or high water. So I remember, like, following him into, like, finding him in the men's toilets, sort of with elasticated trouser man, and I was like, John, you really don't want to do this. And he was like,
So okay, so and what elasticated trousers? Like elasticated waist, or just the whole thing was
yeah, elasticated waist. They had an elasticated waist. He was a larger man. He'd let himself go, but John didn't fail to see the beauty in him, and I was.
Oh, he's an artist. So
He is an
comfy
artist, yeah.
comfy trousers. Like he was
Extremely comfy
slobby kind
trousers,
of. Okay.
and
All right.
yeah,
So sorry.
yeah.
Now I know this. We can.
I'm being unfair to this poor guy, like, he was just having a good time. But yeah, they were extreme. They were like a catalogue trouser.
What does that mean?
Those ones that they advertise at the back of the Guardian,
Oh,
like, with
okay.
very comfortable slippers, and then you can get like a stair lift
Uh-huh.
and one of those things that help you in the
Okay.
car.
So if we were in 2021 and you were in the pub, he would have been wearing like a slanket.
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
the modern.
Okay. So you burst into the toilet where John is entertaining this man.
Yeah, he seemed to have a real. I don't know. He was gravitating towards. This man was now topless, and John was sort of. I don't know, like, he was looking as though he was going to lick his armpits, and that's when I encountered them, and I was just like, John, you really need to reevaluate some of your choices that you're making. And he was quite grateful, I think, to be dragged out of that toilet. I think maybe elasticated trouser man probably was quite grateful that these bad people left him as well. But yeah, the club was amazing. It was just an indie club, and it was all the music that I loved, and I really felt I didn't know that there were places that would just play the music I liked.
Oh, really?
Listen, I'd grown up in Southall. Like, there was nothing. I didn't go out. I didn't know really what clubs were. I certainly didn't go to the pub. You can't overestimate how sheltered I was.
Ah.
I just didn't know that clubs like that were a thing.
And you hadn't kind of experienced any of that, like through university life or anything?
No, because this was like the first time I was free. Like, so for the first year of university till my parents kind of threw me out, I was living at home in Southall. So of course I had to go back home, and it's quite a long way on the tube. So I just didn't.
Just didn't go out.
I just didn't go out.
Oh, wow. So like they played the music you liked. What, like, give me a flavor.
So it was probably like just so ashamed. I don't know. Like,
Don't be ashamed, embrace it.
There was like, I don't know, like, just, like a bit of Nirvana, like a bit of like the Smiths, bit of like the Dandy Warhols, just late 90s jangly indie.
Elastica? I feel like Elastica have just been like forgotten.
Yeah, definitely Elastica. Definitely a bit of Elastica and a bit of Blur and that sort of. Yeah, it was great. The music was great, and this place just carried on serving till like 2 a.m. And then you get the night bus home.
Can we talk about the night bus home? So if you had taken on this role of let's say babysitter.
John's going to be so angry when
Well, okay, so what word would you use?
I mean, self-appointed babysitter.
Well,
I don't think
yes.
that he necessarily needed it or wanted it, but I'd really taken it upon myself that, like,
And I'm totally with you there. Like, I am that person when we go out. Like, I
yeah,
am that person who's like, right, is everyone here? Like, don't cross the road without me saying it's safe to do so. Like, let's do this. Like, but so with that in mind, how stressful was getting the night bus home?
yeah, it was pretty stressful. To be honest with you, it was mostly stressful because I just thought we looked like freaks, and those people on the night bus didn't look. Also, we went, like there were some freaks at the start, and then the freaks would dwindle. Like well before we got to East Ham, the night bus became quite threatening, and there's this like these two weirdos getting on this bus out of their tiny minds, completely incapable of like defending themselves if they had to. And like the night bus brought some pretty hectic energy. Like I felt like we were really maximizing ourselves as targets by combining our forces as this sort of like Asian girl with this terrifying haircut and, a sort of a very artistic, young, beautiful homosexual. I felt that our target group was widening for hate crimes, like we really were like, and to be honest, we were probably quite irritating because we were quite loud.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, we would make it home. We would make it home most nights.
So popcorn was that first place. And was that like a regular thing?
Yeah.
Did it become a regular thing?
Yeah, it was a regular Monday night thing. So we really maximized the fact that we had no money, but we really wanted to go out quite a lot of the time because obviously once John started taking me out, he'd opened the portal for like more. I then became like hungry for like new, frightening, exotic experiences as I saw them, and some of these didn't always turn out that well for me.
Tell me more.
So what we used to frequent some local places, which really I think when you think of
I love how tactful you're trying to be. Just say
it. They were horrifying, Keith. They were fucking monstrous places. They were also great fun. There was a sense of, so these were very local places that we could walk to if we put our minds to it. And, if we had enough kind of booze inside us, we would certainly walk back, let's put it that way. And there was the Angel in Stratford, which was just by a church and like by a graveyard. And it was like somebody's back room, but like that there like was like this perpetual wake was happening, a wake with a disco. There was like this sort of glittery curtain. There were really sort of but people who had, and I don't want to be disparaging because I think people found a real community there, and they were very nice to me, sometimes too nice, because I was definitely one of the few brown people they saw, and I think I was seen as a sort of exotic treat.
So what do you mean by treat?
I think I got poured at quite a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
By women or by men?
By women.
Ah, okay.
But I was too polite to say no because I thought it would be really rude. I was entering their space. If they wanted to pour at me, who was I to stand in their way?
Who was I to have personal boundaries?
Yeah, well, I just felt really rude to say. I did explain. I remember explaining on many occasions that I didn't think I was a lesbian and that I had a boyfriend, but that didn't stop them.
Oh wow!
Nothing, nothing horrible.
Mm. But you think it was because they were fetishizing you?
I mean, I certainly wasn't the most attractive person there, so I really struggling to see the draw. There were definitely other people I would have gone for. So yeah, I don't know. I think I had a lot of novelty value,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And And I was obviously only too pleased to oblige. I think maybe their standards were quite low if they're being turned on by me. Look, I had this, what I guess must have passed off as a very kind of sort of dominant lesbian look. But in fact, I was rebelling against my Asian roots, and they didn't realize this, and it wasn't their fault, that they didn't see the amount of kind of confusion that yeah, I mean,
So you ended up with quite a lot of female suitors.
a lot of female suitors.
Do you still call it a suitor if it's a female? What's the origin of
Uh,
that word?
I don't know.
Suitor. Anyway, I'll look that up at some point. Was John okay? So I have to ask this question, knowing that John might listen to this. Was he okay? Okay, I'll say it like this. Sometimes homosexual men bring female friends to the nightclub with them and then abandon them because they're getting off with someone. Did that happen at all ever?
He never abandoned me, but often I think I legitimized the frightened men that he was approaching, because I had this air of sort of like, I don't know, like I think I think I said that the wrong way. Like sometimes it was a good way of saying like, I'm not mad. See, look at my very nice Indian friend that I've brought with me. It's completely safe to come home with me. I'm a very kind, good man who's taken in this naive young child into my home. You'll be completely safe. And I definitely know that has happened.
So you helped him get laid more?
Maybe. I mean, I can't really talk about what happened before, pre me.
And then, so how did your parents respond to you moving in to into a place on the other side of London?
They were not happy at all. My dad was almost certainly more horrified by the fact that I was living with a homosexual. And like they wouldn't visit the house.
Because there was a homosexual in there, or for like a number of reasons.
Yeah, but I was
Mm.
living with not just John, but like I was living with, two other girls as well who were also gay, and my parents were just like, this is clearly a den of iniquity. Like, what's happening here, And I remember they started to realize, I guess, that it was actually an incredibly caring relationship and a really nice friendship. And there was a real turning point when John wasn't very well. I remember speaking to my dad and my mum, and they were just like, I'm not sure that prayer is always the answer to things, but it was their answer, and they were being kind. They were like, we'll pray for him, we'll really pray for him. And then after he was okay, like my parents started to kind of come over, and like my mum ended up coming to some of John's exhibitions. Like, yeah, like, and she met all of these people that I'd been friends with for years, and like she saw some really shocking things on stage. I remember her seeing like one of our friends doing a strip, like, and I was like, oh my god, mum, please, why don't we take a little walk, like thinking this might be, it's too much for this. But yeah, she came to some of the exhibitions, and then my parents both came to the house, and like they met John. They really liked him. Now, they'll ask after him all the time, and they, I remember my dad like shaking his hand and being like, thank you for like being there for our daughter and stuff.
Aww.
And I just thought, if this kind of really old Indian man who was a priest can embrace this, there's hope for everybody, like that means everybody's capable of change. And I thought that was a really nice, a heartwarming moment after the trials that had brought me to live here in the first place. Like that there was a nice happy ending.
But you didn't tell them
all.
what you were getting up to at night, did you?
I didn't tell them where I was going. Still to this day, do not have a clue about, the places that I frequented, the things that I saw.
And do they have an email address I can send this to them?
Oh my God, thank God they're not very good at using technology. Thank God they're not on social media.
Okay, so before we go, you've lived with John for 20 years, and it's been 20 years since you first had that little rebellion and decided, fuck it, I'm going to go and do this. If you could go back in time and have a conversation with little baby Roz, what would you say?
I think, actually, I don't know. I think baby Roz really, really enjoyed herself a lot. And I think I would have said to make sure that I really remember this stuff a bit better than I do, because it's definitely was a character forming time. It brought me out of myself. It made me stop caring. I was too uptight to dance. I was not, somebody who I was far too self-conscious. I hated the way I looked. And then being taken to all of these amazing and ridiculous places that sadly, it's sad. I feel sad that I can't take people to them now, because I want them to to have that portal back into the past, because I think some of them definitely wouldn't have changed. I feel like they taught me how to let go and not care, and nobody, you're absolutely fine as you are. I think that's a very nice thing. I think everyone should have a John when they're young and lost, as long as they're not, they're ready for the consequences too.
If you enjoyed today's episode, or you just want to have a wee chat, then reach out to me on socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. My username is KAndersonMusic. Tell me what you thought of the episode, and tell me what you'd like to see featured on future episodes. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I have been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the coming year. You can hear the first single, which is called Well Grown Boys and is playing underneath my talking right now on all good streaming platforms. If you liked the episode, I would really, really appreciate if you subscribed or followed, left a review on Apple Podcasts, or just told people who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen too. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.